And then the Tathagata Mahabhijnana Bhiphu acceded to the request made by all the great Brahmas from the 10 directions and the 16 princes. He then immediately turned 3 times the Dharma wheel of 12 spokes that no Shrammanas, Brahmins, Devamaras, Brahmas, or any other being in the world could turn. He taught, quote, "This is suffering. This is the origination of suffering. This is the cessation of suffering. This is the path that leads to the cessation of suffering, i.e., the Four Noble Truths." He also extensively taught the Dharma of the 12-linked chain of dependent origination, saying, quote, "Conditioned states are dependent on ignorance. Consciousness is dependent on conditioned states. Name and form are dependent on consciousness. The 6 sense fields are dependent on name and form. Contact is dependent on the 6 sense fields. Feelings are dependent on contact. Craving is dependent on feelings. Grasping is dependent on craving. Becoming is dependent on grasping. Birth is dependent on becoming. And old age, sickness, death, anxiety, sorrow, suffering, and distress are dependent on birth. When ignorance ceases, then conditioned states cease. When conditioned states cease, then consciousness ceases. When consciousness ceases, then form and name cease. When name and form cease, then the 6 sense fields cease. When the 6 sense fields cease, then contact ceases. When contact ceases, the feelings cease. When feelings cease, then craving ceases. When craving ceases, then grasping ceases. When grasping ceases, then becoming ceases. When becoming ceases, then birth ceases. When birth ceases, then old age, sickness, death, anxiety, sorrow, suffering, and distress cease. When the Buddha explained this Dharma to the great assembly of the devas and humans, at that time 600 myriads of kotis of nayutas of people, because they were not attached to any existent thing, became free of all corruption. All of them perfected profound meditations, the 3 sciences, the 6 transcendent powers, and were endowed with the 8 liberations. When he taught the Dharma for the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th time, thousands of myriads of kotis of nayutas of sentient beings, equal to the sands of the Ganges River, who were not attached to any existent thing, became free of all corruption. Innumerable, immeasurable, incalculable Shravakas followed in their turn. At that time, the 16 princes, who were still young, renounced household life and became Shramanaras. All their faculties were sharp, and their wisdom was penetrating. They had paid homage to hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis of Buddhas, practiced the pure path of discipline and integrity, and sought highest, complete enlightenment. They all spoke to the Buddha, saying, quote, "O Bhagavat, all of these immeasurable thousands of myriads of kotis of Shravakas of great merit have all attained perfection. O Bhagavat, you should also expound the teaching of highest complete enlightenment to us. Hearing it, we shall all practice it. O Bhagavat, we aspire for the wisdom and insight of the Tathagata. The Buddha himself knows what is deep in our minds." At that time, 8 myriads of kotis of people in the assembly who served the noble emperor saw the 16 princes renounce household life and appeal to the emperor to allow their own renunciation. The emperor immediately gave his permission. Then the Buddha accepted the request of the Sramaneras. After 20,000 kalpas had passed, he taught to the fourfold assembly this Mahayana Sutra called the Lotus Sutra, the instruction for bodhisattvas and treasured lore of the Buddhas. After the Buddha taught this sutra, all the 16 Sramaneras preserved, recited, and understood it in order to achieve highest complete enlightenment. When the Buddha taught this sutra, all the 16 Sramaneras, the bodhisattvas, completely accepted it. There were also some among the Sravakas who believed it, but all the other thousands of myriads of kotis of sentient beings became confused. The Buddha continuously taught this sutra for 8,000 kalpas without stopping. After teaching this sutra, he immediately entered a quiet place and abided in meditation for 84,000 kalpas. At that time, each of the 16 Sramaneras, the bodhisattvas, knowing that the Buddha had entered the quiet place and was abiding tranquilly in meditation, ascended the Dharma seat and extensively taught and explained the Lotus Sutra to the fourfold assembly for 84,000 kalpas. Each of them saved 600 myriads of kotis of nayutas of sentient beings, equal in number to the sands of the Ganges River. By revealing and teaching it, they gladdened these sentient beings and awoke in them the thought of highest, complete enlightenment. Having arisen from samadhi after 84,000 kalpas had passed, the Buddha Mahabhijna Bhikkhu approached the Dharma seat and sat down with complete mindfulness. He addressed everyone in the assembly, saying, quote, "These 16 Sramaneras, bodhisattvas, are extraordinary. All their faculties are sharp, and their wisdom is penetrating. In times past, they have paid homage to immeasurable thousands of myriads of kotis of Buddhas and have constantly practiced the pure path of discipline and integrity under them. They preserved the wisdom of the Buddhas and revealed it to sentient beings, causing them to enter into it. All of you should approach and pay them homage again and again. Why is this? If there are any Sravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas who are able to believe and preserve the teaching in this sutra expounded by these 16 Bodhisattvas and not disparage it, they will all attain the wisdom of the Tathagata, highest complete enlightenment." The Buddha addressed the monks, saying, quote, "These 16 Bodhisattvas always willingly taught this Lotus Sutra. Each bodhisattva has inspired 600 myriads of kotis of nayutas of sentient beings equal in number to the sands of the Ganges River. In life after life, they remained with these bodhisattvas, and, hearing this teaching from them, they believed and understood. For this reason, they were able to meet 4 myriads of kotis of Buddha Bhagavats during a period uninterrupted up to the present. O monks, I shall now tell you that these 16 Sramaneras, disciples of that Buddha Mahabhijna Bhikkhu, have now attained highest complete enlightenment and presently teach the Dharma in the lands of the 10 directions. There are immeasurable hundreds of thousands of myriads of bodhisattvas and shravakas who have become their attendants. 2 of these Sramaneras became Buddhas in the East. One is called Aksobhaya in the land called Abhirati, and the other is called Merakuta. In the southeast, there are 2 Buddhas. One is called Simhaghosa, and the other is called Simhadhadvaja. In the south, there are two Buddhas called Akasapratisthita and Nitya Parinirvirta. There are also two Buddhas in the southwest. One is called Indra Devacha, and the other is called Brahma Devacha. In the west, there are two Buddhas called Amitayus and Sarvalokadatu Padra Vodvega Prati Utirna. There are two Buddhas in the northwest. One is called Tamala Patrakand Anaganda Bijna. The other is called Merukalpa. In the north there are two Buddhas. One is called Meghasvaradipa, and the other is called Meghasvararaja. In the northeast there is a Buddha called Sarvaloka Bhaya Achambitat Vavid Vama Sanakara. And the 16th one is myself, Buddha Sakyamuni, who in this Saha world achieved highest, complete enlightenment. O monks, when we were Shramaneras, each of us inspired immeasurable hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis of sentient beings equal in number to the sands of the Ganges River. Those sentient beings who heard the teaching from me attained highest complete enlightenment. There are sentient beings who still abide in the stage of Sravaka and whom I will inspire to attain highest complete enlightenment. By means of this teaching, they will gradually enter the Buddha path. Why is this? The wisdom of the Tathagatas is hard to believe and hard to understand. Those incalculable sentient beings equal in number to the sands of the Ganges River, who were inspired at that time, were you, O monks, and those disciples who will be Shravakas in the future, after my parinirvana. After my parinirvana, there will be disciples who will not hear this sutra, and will neither know nor understand the bodhisattva practice. Yet, through the merit they have acquired, the thought of extinction will awaken in them, and they will enter parinirvana. I will become a Buddha in another land with a different name. Although the idea of extinction has awoken in these disciples, and they have entered parinirvana, in that land they will still seek the wisdom of the Buddhas, and will then be able to hear this sutra. They can obtain parinirvana only through the Buddha vehicle. There are no other vehicles except the one taught through the skillful means of the Tathagata. O monks, when the Tathagata realizes that the time of his parinirvana is approaching, knowing that the assembly is pure, firm in belief and understanding, has penetrated the teaching of emptiness, and has deeply entered meditation, he will then gather the assembly of bodhisattvas and sravakas together and teach this sutra to them. In this world there is no second vehicle through which one can attain parinirvana. Only through the single Buddha vehicle can one attain it. You should know, O monks, that the Tathagata, through skillful means, deeply penetrates the dispositions of sentient beings. Knowing their inclination toward the inferior teachings, and that they are deeply attached to the desires of the five senses, he teaches nirvana for their sake. If they listen, they will accept it. Suppose in a desolate, fearful place there were a dangerous road 500 yojanas long. There is a large group that wants to travel along this road to reach a place where there is great treasure. They have a leader who is wise and penetrating, and who knows the passable and impassable parts of this dangerous road very well. Although he wants to guide these people past the danger, they become exhausted along the way. Addressing the leader, they say, quote, "We are extremely tired and frightened. We cannot go any further. We are still far away from our destination, and we want to turn back." The leader, knowing many skillful means, thinks, quote, "These people are to be pitied. How could they want to turn back and abandon the great treasure?" After thinking this, the leader, through his skillful means, magically creates a city 300 yojanas away along the dangerous road. He addresses the people, saying, quote, "Do not be frightened. Do not turn back. You may now stay in this great city and be at your leisure. If you enter this city, you can be comfortable and at ease. Once you are able to go on and reach the treasure site, then you can depart once more." Then the exhausted people rejoiced greatly and praised this unprecedented experience, saying, quote, "We are now free of this evil road and will be comfortable and at ease." Then they proceed to the apparitional city and enter it. They believe that their hardships are over and feel at ease. Then the leader realizes that they are rested and their fatigue has gone. He immediately makes the apparitional city vanish and says to the people, quote, "All of you, come along. The treasure site is near. I made that great apparitional city only in order to let you rest." O monks, the Tathagata is exactly like this. Now, for your sake, he has become a great leader who knows the long, dangerous, and evil road of birth, death, and desire's confusion. You should leave it and be saved. If sentient beings hear only about the single Buddha vehicle, they will then want neither to see nor approach a Buddha. They will think that the Buddha path is long and attainable only after enduring severe and protracted suffering. The Buddha, knowing their minds, knowing that they are weak-willed and of lowly aspiration, teaches them the two nirvanas through skillful means in order to let them rest halfway to the goal. If there are sentient beings who abide in either of these two stages, the Tathagata immediately teaches, quote, "What you have accomplished is not complete. The stage you abide in is close to the wisdom of the Buddhas. You should observe and consider that the nirvana you have obtained is not the true one. It is only through the power of the Tathagata's skillful means that the single Buddha vehicle is explained as three." The Buddha is just like that leader who conjured a great apparitional city to let the people rest. Knowing that they were rested, he addressed them, saying, quote, "The treasure site is near. This city is not real. It is only my invention." Thereupon, the Bhagavat, wanting to elaborate on the meaning of this further, spoke these verses. The Buddha, Mahabhijnana Bibhu, sat on the terrace of enlightenment for 10 kalpas, but still the Dharma of the Buddhas did not appear to him, and he did not attain the Buddha path. The Devas, Naga kings, Asuras, and others constantly rain down heavenly flowers in order to pay homage to that Buddha. The Devas beat heavenly drums and played various kinds of music. The fragrant winds blew the withered flowers away, and then they rained down fresh, beautiful ones. After 10 intermediate kalpas had passed, he then attained the Buddha path, and all the devas and humans became joyful and ecstatic. The 16 princes of that Buddha, surrounded by thousands of myriads of kotis of attendants, came to the place where the Buddha was. Having bowed until their foreheads touched his feet, they requested him to turn the wheel of the Dharma, saying, quote, "O noble lion, fill us and everyone else with the rain of the Dharma. It is extremely difficult to meet a Bhagavat, since he appears only once in a very long time." To get the attention of the beings, the Buddha shook the entire world. The palaces of the Brahmas in the 500 myriads of kotis of lands in the east were illuminated as never before. All of the Brahmas, seeing this phenomenon, came to the place where the Buddha was. They reverently scattered flowers and offered him their palaces. Requesting the Buddha turn the wheel of the Dharma, they praised him in verse. The Buddha knew that the right time had not yet arrived, and although he had been asked, he sat in silence. The other three directions, the four remaining quarters, and the upper and lower regions were all like this. All the Brahmas scattered flowers, offered their palaces, and requested the Buddha to turn the wheel of the Dharma, saying, quote, "It is extremely difficult to meet a Bhagavat. We entreat you to open wide the gate to immortality and turn the wheel of the highest Dharma through your great compassion." The Bhagavat, having immeasurable wisdom, accepted their request and expounded various teachings, such as the Four Noble Truths and the 12 linked chain of dependent origination, saying, quote, "Beginning with ignorance and ending with old age and death, all these derive from birth. You should know about such miseries." When the Buddha expounded this teaching, 600 myriads of kotis of trillions of people attained the complete extinction of all suffering and became arhats. At the time of the second teaching, thousands of myriads of people, equal in number to the sands of the Ganges River, unattached to any existent thing, also attained arhatship. After that, an incalculable number of beings attained the path. Even if one were to count for myriads of kotis of kalpas, one could not finish counting their number. Then the 16 princes renounced household life and became Shramaneras. They all asked the Buddha to expound the teaching of the Mahayana, saying, quote, "Let us and all of our attendants attain the Buddha path. We entreat you to let us obtain the Bhagavat's eye of wisdom, supreme in purity." The Buddha, knowing the minds of his children and their past conduct, taught the 6 perfections and various transcendent powers through incalculably numerous explanations and various illustrations. Explaining the true teaching and the path to be practiced by the Bodhisattvas, he taught this Lotus Sutra in verses equal in number to the sands of the Ganges River. After the Buddha taught this sutra, he entered meditation in a quiet place and sat with complete concentration in the same spot for 84,000 kalpas. Those Shramaneras, knowing that the Buddha had not arisen from meditation, taught the highest wisdom of the Buddhas to immeasurable kotis of beings. Each sat on the Dharma seat and explained this Mahayana Sutra. After the great parinirvana of that Buddha, they propagated the Dharma and inspired others. Each Shramanera saved 600 myriads of kotis of sentient beings, equal in number to the sands of the Ganges River. Those who heard the teaching after the Buddha's parinirvana were always born together with their teachers in various other Buddha lands. These 16 Shramaneras completely cultivated the Buddha path, and now, in the 10 directions, they have attained highest complete enlightenment. Then those who heard the Dharma in the presence of each of these Buddhas, and those who are in the Shravaka stage, will gradually be taught the Buddha path. I am one of the 16. I have also taught you in the past. Therefore, through skillful means, I will now also lead you to the goal, which is the wisdom of the Buddhas. Through these former causes and conditions, I will now teach the Lotus Sutra in order to let you enter the Buddha path. Do not be worried or frightened. Suppose there were a dangerous road in a deserted wasteland far away, where there are many harmful beasts. There is neither water nor grass. It is a fearful place for human beings. Innumerable thousands of myriads of beings wish to pass along this dangerous way. But that road is very long, some 500 yojanas. Then there is a leader, endowed with deep wisdom and knowledge, discerning and resolute, who saves the people from various calamities when they meet with danger. The people all get tired and address the leader saying, quote, "We are now totally exhausted. We want to turn back from here." The leader thinks, quote, "These people are really to be pitied. How could they possibly want to return and lose the great treasure?" He immediately thinks of skillful means and how he should now use his transcendent powers. And he makes a great apparitional city, with houses adorned and surrounded with gardens, moats, and ponds. There are fortified gates and tall towers, and it is full of men and women. When the apparition is complete, he immediately consoles the people, saying, quote, "Do not be afraid. When you enter the city, you can each do as you please." All the people enter the city. They are very happy and feel at ease, thinking they have been saved. When the leader knows they are arrested, he gathers them together and addresses them, saying, quote, "You should now proceed, for this is just an apparitional city. Seeing that you were extremely fatigued and that you wanted to turn back after coming halfway, I made this apparitional city through skillful means. You should now strive to reach the treasure site together. I am exactly like this. I am the leader of all. Perceiving that those seeking the way have become timid, have stopped halfway, and are unable to walk to the end of the dangerous road of birth, death, and desire's confusion, I use skillful means and teach nirvana so that they may rest, saying, quote, "You have extinguished suffering, and you have completed what must be done." Knowing that they have reached nirvana and attained arhatship, the Buddha immediately gathers the great assembly together and teaches the true Dharma. All the Buddhas explain and teach the three vehicles through skillful means. Although there is only the single Buddha vehicle, they teach two in order to provide a place of rest. For your benefit, I now teach the truth. Quote, "What you have attained is not the ultimate goal. You must call forth great efforts in order to obtain the omniscience of a Buddha. If you attain omniscience and the qualities of the Buddha, such things as the 10 powers, and become endowed with the 32 marks, then you will have attained the ultimate goal." The Buddhas, the leaders, teach nirvana in order to let beings rest in comfort. When they know that they have rested, they lead them to the wisdom of the Buddhas.